Hello folks, from a very wet and damp afternoon in the west of Ireland. I have had loads of questions and comments and queries about my playing and style and technique and what I'm doing and how I do it and all that kind of stuff. So what I decided to do was play a track all the way through and then afterwards explain what I've done. Before we do that, first of all, I'm not left-handed. This is actually my right hand. The phone swaps the image around so it looks like I'm a left-handed player. This is actually my right hand. To confuse matters even more. Really quick thing about my setup. I'm using neck pickup because I like a particular tone, like a warm tone, using a glass slide. It's a Dunlop 210 slide. 1356 strings, they're quite heavy. And I'm playing through a cheap bowl Harley Benton amp and a cheap bowl pedal with a bit of compression, small bit of delay and distortion. And that's it. That's all I have. I'm not big into pedals and stuff like that. This guitar is a Harley Benton. It's one of my favourites. I love it. Play it 2-3 hours a day. Fantastic guitar. So that's it. And I'll get the track going and then you can have a listen. While I'm playing, by the way, keep a look on my right hand, your left. And you'll notice I'm fixing my hand in one position and I ain't moving it at all. And there's a particular reason for that. And also I'm dampening the strings with my thumb on this hand and with the 2 fingers behind the slide on this hand. So it's quite important. And you'll see me lifting those dampening fingers off now and again. I used to have to think about it when I was doing it, but now I don't really have to think about it. I'm kind of thinking ahead of what I'm going to play. I've only heard this track twice, so there's probably going to be a few bum notes, but you get the point. It's really just to explain what I'm doing. So without further ado, here we go. A couple of things. My right hand, I fix it in one position on the over the actual pickups. So I'm always using the neck pickup, so I have my hand positioned where I don't really need to move it at all. I'm just using my fingers, and the reason for that is I don't want to think about it. I've kind of worked on finding a position on this particular guitar. I've its own position on the other guitar, and I basically don't move that hand at all. Just moving the fingers. I lift and position the thumb because that's dampening the strings, especially the lower strings, and I lift off whenever I need to use them. So basically, if I'm playing, say, from high to low, when I'm at this position up here, I'm going to raise my thumb. So basically, raise it, and then I was using it to pick these lower strings and then putting it back down again. I also use the fingers behind the slide to dampen as well. It's really important. It cleans up the sound, and especially when you're doing a lot of kind of individual notes, you don't want any other string to be ringing out. Makes it clearer. Compression. Why do I use compression? Well, here is a chord without compression. Here it is with compression. Big difference. It's great because it makes it sound really beefy. It makes it cuts through the frequencies of whatever track, or if you're playing with a band. It's a really nice full sound, and it sustains wonderfully. It's almost like feedback, you know. Intonation. Okay, so if you watch slide players, whomever, well, we'll say 90% of slide players, you'll notice that they never look up when they're playing slide. They're always completely focused. They're not looking around, and they're not looking behind them, looking out at the crowd, or making shapes, or making faces and all that kind of stuff. They're always watching the fretboard, and there's a reason for that. You have to be spot on with your intonation. You have to have that slide right over the fret itself. It can't be a little high or a little low. It has to be right over. Even a millimeter. So that's right on the fret there. If you even tilt it, as in move the slide just this way a bit, it's gone. So it must be, the slide, if possible, must be, especially if you're playing chords, must be right in line with the fret. You would have seen me doing that quite a lot, especially in that chord where I go. You know, it has to be right on. If I'm doing individual notes, sometimes you'll see me tilt the slide a bit, but the point where the slide intersects the fret for the note that I'm playing is always bang on. But sometimes I have the slide slightly tilted when I'm doing runs up and down. But that's just out of habit. I practice quite a lot, and it's almost muscle memory now at this stage. But I still need to watch where I'm putting the slide all the time. I have to keep focused on that, because if I turn my head away at all, it's gone flat or sharp or whatever. It's important as well that if you're moving, a lot of people keep the slide, you know, completely across the frets. You don't really need to do that, especially if you're not playing these notes up here. You can actually move your slide up and down. So basically, if you're doing a run like this, so you're moving it. So if you're playing these higher strings, I'm barely having to slide on the fretboard at all. It's right at the edge. So no, so don't be afraid to move it up and down. And when I'm playing, say, I suppose like scales or runs, when you're playing the standards tuning, you often play the cage system, so you're kind of stuck in one area. When you're not stuck in one area, you're playing in one particular area. But with slide, I tend to play linearly, so I play up and down the length of the string. So I do a lot of this. Do a lot of that. It just adds a bit of interest, and it's a really nice style, I suppose, that I've picked up from the likes of Derek Trucks and Dwayne Allman. A lot of people have commented on the harmonics that I use or get out of certain notes. So basically, what I do is, this is the normal note, and with harmonics, that kind of thing. What I'm doing is I'm pinching the string up against, so I'm pinching it with this finger, and I'm pinching it up against my thumb. So I'm almost plucking it out away from the fretboard, and it gives that lovely kind of. Yeah. What I want to do, I won't do it. So I use a lot of that, and also you don't have to, because you're using compression and the notes tend to sustain longer than it normally would. You don't have to play every note. You can actually do a lot of this. You don't have to pluck every note. Almost sounds like a violin sometimes, which I love. And I think that's about it, really. The rest is just practice, Intonation is really key. Make sure your guitar is set up from point of view of intonation. Make sure that, when you play on the 12th fret, it sounds the same down there. It's really key. And that's about it. I always keep, this might sound like a stupid thing, but when I'm playing on my left hand, and your screen is my right hand, it's actually my left hand, I anchor my thumb at certain points along the fretboard. So basically, I'll take the slide off. If I'm playing a certain area, my thumb is fixed, but I'm rotating my hand around that point, fulcrum. So I'm rotating, and I can get a fairly decent reach, from here, back up here, so I can really reach, but my thumb is staying fixed. And that is a really, really good point of reference for when I'm doing runs over a certain area. Get that into that habit. That's a really good habit. So over time, you learn to fix your thumb at certain points along the fret, knowing that your hand will reach and your slide will reach certain, parameters within that area. So basically, down here, I know I'm going to reach all the way up here on this section. Here, I'm going to reach up here, here. Basically, I actually put my thumb on the dots, as I call them. So I know I can reach all the way up here. Thumb doesn't move. Really good anchor point. Now, that also brings, or makes it important to make sure the back of your fretboard is really, really clean. It can't be sticky. If it's sticky at all, you're not going to be able to jump your thumb from one area to the other. It's just going to feel wrong. So make sure that the back of your neck, is spotlessly clean. Clean your guitar all the time. Wash your hands before you play the guitar. Goes without saying. And that's it, really. I know there's tons of you out there who are expert guitar players. I'm only playing 2 years on slide. I have a lot to learn yet. And there's a lot of kind of guys out there who are a lot better slide players than me. But I tend to be on quite a lot. And a lot of you have asked those questions. So one thing I would say about slide as well, it's a perfect style for anybody who, say, might have arthritis, for example, or have difficulty, moving their fingers, because really, you don't have to move the the fingers of your right hand too much. You know, you're barely moving them. And with this hand, you're not moving them at all. You stick your slide on, you have your position like this, and really all you want is decent wrist action. So if your fingers are really if you struggle to move your fingers in standard playing, you know, to do chords or solos or any of that kind of stuff, pick up slide. It's a really, really good way of learning. It takes a lot of practice. It's actually more difficult than learning standard guitar, because you have to you're relearning your fretboard. It's a whole different tuning. It's a completely different style. The biggest hurdle that people come across is getting the intonation right, and that's really key. And as I mentioned before, you see players like Dwayne Allman and Winters and Derry Trucks, when they're playing, their eyes never leave the fretboard. They're always completely focused on where they're playing, because they need to get that slide directly over the fret, and it can't be even a millimeter out or it's wrong. So they're completely focused on where they're playing the slide and thinking about where they're going to put the slide or place it for the next note. So that's about it. Any more questions, just leave a comment in the section below, and I'll get back to you. Thank you. Keep playing, keep practicing. And this is my right hand, that's my left hand. I'm not left-handed. See you later.